And just before we proceed, I believe we are joined by Kabir, our runner and director. He's technically my CEO. He's been my CEO for a while. So equivalent.
Okay.
No, Kabir. I'm nobody's CEO.
Where is Kabir? Let me. Yeah. Okay, Kabir Khan. Yes.
Hi, Kabir.
Hi.
Okay. Okay. So I was on annual leave in
I'm just
Jan,
saying, sir, I'm just
Yeah.
going to drop off for 10 minutes and come right back on.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you.
So Jan, Feb, I was on leave and I get a message. Those days it was only letters. And I get the letter a day before me and my wife, and we were a year old married that time. It is recommended you don't bring your wife back there. So the first response is what? Letter not received and you get your wife over. Let's be fair, yeah. So then I said, if my unit is telling me not to get the lady, there must be something. So after some mental turmoil and sleeping over it, I said, unpack, because those were the days of trunks and all. We didn't have suitcases.
Right.
So we said, let's unpack and you don't come with me. We'll see whatever is the thing. And the thing was that in February, early March, it was that we were to go to Siachen in 1984. So Brigadier Khanna involved was the one with the brain, keeping the security aspect in mind, how to train the battalion. And since I was into this with GoriChen background and we had a couple of HAWS instructors, etc., I also had done the HAWS course. HAWS is High Altitude Warfare School in Gulmarg. So we organized the training of the battalion. And then it is a world record of sorts that we walked over Zozila Pass as a battalion with full battle loads. It had never been even attempted in the past. It was not required, etc. And deliberately there were intelligence leaks that, this battalion is on punishment. And, there were various spicy news floating around as to why this battalion was being punished. And actually it was for an operational task, etc. So you can ask Brigadier Khanna, he'll have a better memory of those issues. And there I was in charge of the emergency rescue team, because on the ice and snow, anything can happen, and things did happen, and a weapon slipped into the water and we rescued it. Because it's a shame for a battalion to lose a weapon, and that too not due to enemy action. But remember, in this entire saga, please remember that, as I have always said, I have never spoken on this except on our Silver Jubilee when I was interviewed by, amongst others, Hindustan Times, and those cuttings and clippings are available both with me and of course with Brigadier Khanna. The fact is, the number one enemy is the weather. It is not China in today's scenario, Pakistan in those days scenario, the physical enemy. The number one enemy is the weather. The number two enemy sometimes becomes your own higher headquarters, which mercifully is not the case today. But often you would have also faced it, that the mind space that you spend in managing your boss, and that is something Brigadier Khanna will tell you, more to understand and pepper over certain aspects in the commercial production of your series. The purpose is not to justify us. We are well beyond that age. The purpose is to say that interpersonal issues become major issues in war. And as I was telling Tanmay, war has no power to transform character. It only exposes character behind the facade and makes it plain for everybody to see. It doesn't transform. So remember that part, so that, the purpose is not to get into squabbles on minor issues, but your main thrust. And then Siachen, how things happened, what happens, the various human interest stories. So Brigadier Khanna sir, now Tanmay will continue with the introduction of all of us to all of us. Please, Tanmay, all yours.
So very quickly, we have Kabir, who's our director and our showrunner. And, he's the one who's putting all the things creatively, and we're just contributing to him. There's Arnav. Arnav is our researcher, yes, and DK sir, he's the only one who's probably read your book. He found it firstly and he read it, and he's made it his notes available to all of us. We have Tanvi, who's our creative producer, and then I'm Tanmay. I'm one of the writers and contributing to this subject. So we would like to pick it up right from, let's say, and before we go, I mean, thank you for joining us at such a short notice. The moment Sanjay sir told me that you'd be interested, I lapped on it and said, absolutely, it's a wonderful idea. So if you could start with, how GoriChen happened exactly. And, it's unbelievable as to, somebody who could read books and climb a mountain. I mean, I don't think that's been heard before. For me, it was very, very fascinating.
Yeah, this is very interesting. You see, there was an expedition which was planned to go there by the division. So it was a very planned expedition. And unfortunately, the leader of the expedition fell sick and they canceled the expedition. That is the time I took this opportunity and spoke to my general officer commanding to give me the opportunity to take my battalion for the expedition. And of course, people from the rest of the division would also be welcome to join us. And it will be a divisional expedition. It was to be a divisional expedition. First thing why I volunteered for it was that I had taken over a new battalion, which was just about 2 years old. And it was in a peace station, primarily spending time in the peace, in IS duties and other things. But my operational role was in the mountains in the east, in the Combined Frontier Division of NEFA. So my aim was that I must build up the battalion in a cohesive manner to each individual of the battalion to rely on another person to become a team. And that you can make a team only when you are in difficult times, when you're facing difficulties together, when it's a question of life and death. Mountaineering is one thing. And since it was my operational area, I may have to fight the operations against the Chinese there. So I was keen that everybody should be familiar with the area. My next reason was that since it was a new battalion and people had come from all over, they had still not amalgamated themselves as a team. And you can make a team only when you work together under difficult conditions. I also wanted to encourage people to take decisions on their own. Even the smallest of leaders, I wanted to make sure that he has the initiative to take a decision and be able to lead his small team, whether it's a section of 10 men, a platoon of 35 men, or a company of 120 men. So initiative was another thing which I wanted to encourage. Keeping all these things in mind, I decided and went to the GOC to permit me to take an expedition there, drive from where the battalion was located. He was my immediate boss, and I spoke to him. He said, no, it requires a lot of administration, and we need expertise in this. I said, don't worry about that. Administration I look after. Give me the task. If you can produce an administrative plan for this, I will permit you to go. I spent the whole day, wrote down the plan, went to his administrative officer, Colonel Q, Colonel A, gave them my plan, convinced them that it is feasible with my battalion alone and the whole battalion taking part in it as an expedition, and we'll climb that mountain. Incidentally, GoriChen is the highest peak in the eastern sector of India. So it had not been climbed before that. At least no records were there to show that it has been climbed. And the division was keen that yes, if we can do it, why not? My administrative plan having been prepared, then I went to the library, collected all the books on mountaineering which I could find, and I still remember the number. There were 11 of them. And it was in the evening, it was in the afternoon, and I gave a call to the battalion, which was about 5 hours drive from there. I'm coming and I want all officers to be at my house for a drink and dinner. So when I reached there, I saw, everybody had come in and we met. So that is where I told them about it. This is what I've accepted, and I hope they were all with me in this decision. There were doubts being raised, and particularly Sanjay Agarwal, who was one of the youngest in the battalion that time. The youngest or one of the youngest? No, Dalip came after you.
Dalip,
You're on mute.
Yeah. Who's on mute?
Sanjay sir is on mute. No.
Acha. Okay,
please.
okay.
Okay, so
Okay.
I had joined in June 79. Giti had joined thereafter. And 2 years later, Baljinder had joined. That is in June 81, Baljinder had joined.
Okay.
And
So
Dalip
he was
came
the
in.
youngest. They all asked me, how are we going to climb? We don't have the expertise. A little bit of expertise, which I had, of course. I'd done the mountain warfare course during my career earlier. We had a couple of instructors in mountaineering in the battalion. So I told them, this is the expertise available. We'll get the equipment. And here is a stack of books. You can take a book each, read the books, exchange notes, and hopefully we should be able to do the needful. And this was, I think, in the month of August, middle of August, end August, something like that. So I gave them the books, and Sanjay was the one who asked me, sir, it is like playing a football match after reading a book on football. Are you sure we'll be able to do? So it was a good question. So I said, yes, at least I'm convinced we'll be able to do. And of course, everybody agreed and everybody was with me on that. And then we started off the training. We went to a place called Bombdila at about 9,000 feet, starting at 9,000 and going up to about 11,000, 12,000. And that is where we did our training. And that is a place, I had a couple of instructors who had been instructors in the high altitude warfare school of the Indian Army. And they started the training, physical fitness, and the whole battalion was taking part in that. One day I was just passing through in that area, going to see the rock climbing and rappelling training. I was standing on the road and I saw nobody wanted to come down.
Just a moment,
Kiki sir.
Kiki sir, just a moment. Rappelling, I hope you all understand, is descending a rock cliff, virtually sliding down with a rope in your hands, and what you see is your own weight. When we do it in the military, we have a lot of military weight in addition. So despite gloves and all, there's a technique to it. That's rappelling. That's what Brigadier Khanna is talking about. And I had also done the winter warfare course in January 1981, and we are now talking of August 1982. So there was this training team core, a core training team, which was to, half blind men leading full blind men, if you call it, all supremely physically fit, all mentally go-getters. But technically, on the techniques of mountain climbing, we had very few of us who knew anything about it, and one or two of us did know quite a bit about it. Please continue, sir.
Thank you, Sanjay. And so I saw nobody was coming down and they were all scared. So I stopped my jeep there, climbed up to the top of the vertical cliff, which we were to rappel down. And I called one of the young officers. Dilip is his name. I said, come, sit down on my back. I carried him on the back, tied myself to the rope, and I did my rappelling thing and brought him down right till the bottom. And after seeing me do that, there was no problem, and everything started, as if nothing had happened and nobody was scared. Of course, when I came down, I was, full of breath and I couldn't breathe properly, but I didn't show that. So to that extent, the training started, and in the month of September, we did a lot of training. Then there is a question of acclimatization. Then there is a question of establishing further camps and taking the loads there. And finally, on the 6th of October, from the base, GoriChen was scaled. There were 3 people finally who went to the peak. Peak was at 6,488, 6488. Am I correct? 6488 meters. It's about 22,000, 6488. And we were able to accomplish this mission. And this mission was not only the scaling of the GoriChen, as I said, we built up a team. We had a sense of achievement. The whole battalion was talking about GoriChen, and we got to be known as the GoriChen battalion there. And we were building up a team. And of course, physical fitness, mountain warfare, living in the mountains, that was the achievement of that. So, any questions, anything you want me to explain further on this?
Before they come with the questions, just a minute, let me add 2 things. I would recommend researcher Arnav to please Google GoriChen.
Yes, sure.
When you Google GoriChen, if you zoom on the map between Bomdila, Tawang and the area east and northeast, you will not find GoriChen.
Okay.
However, if you write the word GoriChen on Google Map, you will then find GoriChen.
Okay.
And the tactical significance of that, why the GOC wanted this done, is something you will bring out as the foresight of military commanders 38 years ago to what is happening today. Because I am talking again, now I have to talk again to all top bankers across ASEAN countries. So I am bringing this out as well. I just Googled it last week. GoriChen is on the Google map, and I have got screenshots marked bang on the border, bang on the border. So it has its own so-called patrolling of no man's land or areas where nobody went, which of course was not known to me, certainly at that stage. The higher planning, why the hell would the GOC? The Brigadier Khanna has explained why he took it on. Why would the GOC want this done? To show our presence in what we say, and the map supports us, is Indian territory. So if you show a screen grab of the Google map in your final production, it will help. So this is the tactical significance of that. Yes, questions please.
Yeah, I have one question for it could for both of you. In the book that you had written, Khanna sir, the scene in which you had handed the books to your 11 officers is quite vividly written. One interesting factor that was there was that Sanjay sir, you were not drinking that day. I would just want to understand what the dynamic was. That, like, tell us what it was like hearing that mission and.
Okay, so I was not drinking that day, and that situation has continued for the next 38 years as well. I am a non-drinker.
Okay, sir.
That, though, to be frank, I have tasted the most exotic and best liquors of the world. I've been abroad on 2 assignments for two years each, as I had sent my visiting card to Tanmay, so it is there. But I don't drink. I mean, there is no taboo. But if I feel like it, even today, maybe once in a year, I'll have a swig of beer. Or if somebody is offering me Blue Label, I might have a sip on the rocks. But I don't otherwise drink.
Okay.
And the question is very valid because you see, I had done winter warfare course. So who is confident? Either the one who is a gyani or a one who is a total ignorant. Arey, ho jayega, kar lenge. Because the gyani knows it, or the ignorant doesn't know the pitfalls.
Yeah.
So that is why this question, and obviously when you go in for a mountaineering expedition, which I now look at is with this much larger tactical aim, not only of the military commander, the general officer commanding 5 division in Tenga, which is part of East Kameng district, or is it West Kameng district? I forget. Kameng district, and or it is well above him. The fact was they wanted to put boots on ground in that area. As I now look back in hindsight, having been the security advisor to the government at the Home Ministry. Now to come to your question of this scene, imagine the CO after a 5-hour drive walks into his house and pre-planned, all of us are there. Obviously we know there is some news and possibly good because he said drinks and dinner. If it was bad news, it would be in office. So, you know, and drinks is something, you know, then you can be a little informal, etc. So I don't remember the scene per se, but I do understand my own psyche that yes, I have been very liberal with voicing my questions, views, fully knowing that they would be against the general flow of popular thought, which is what made me popular when I said, why are we thinking of talking of Kashmir when Balakot happened? I said, please talk of Gilgit-Baltistan. And with me was Sambit Patra, and on the second debate, it was Sudhanshu Trivedi. And they said, हम क्या बोल रहे हैं? Brigadier Sanjay साहब ने तो already बोल दिया ये. Today it is common we are talking of Gilgit-Baltistan. But in February and in last year when 5th August this happened, it was not known. So these questions only show the bonhomie and the atmosphere created by your boss, maintaining his position, his aura, etc., and yet not stifling genuine questions. And if you read Bono, Edward de Bono, this is what he talks in 7 Thinking Hats. You must have the devil's advocate. There are 7 roles that you must have in every kind of a discussion, what you call brainstorming. And let me be a little tangential from Brigadier Khanna when he said that everybody was with him. A lot of us are with you because we have no choice. Isn't it so? There you are, all you guys are smiling. So when a guy says yeah, he doesn't say no, his argument is, well, I haven't said a yes. And the standard military joke is, who is willing to take on this suicide mission? And the boss said, you're a brave guy, you stepped forward. So the sad looking guy says, I didn't step forward, everybody took a step back. So when everybody is with you, that is one on the lighter vein part of it. But yes, the fact was we all trusted the CO. And by the way, let me tell you about Brigadier Khanna. Remember, he was a major who came on promotion to the battalion as a lieutenant colonel. So the age group, etc. We had no colonels in the battalions, no red tabs in the battalions. Second, he was supremely physically fit, an example of which he has given. And he rubbed it into the battalion by doing extra long, like 16 kilometers of a high altitude walk we had to do. Ahead of Bomdila, the road ends at a place called Tungri, and from Tungri you have to walk to Changla and Pushingla, which is there in the book, Changla as the first camp. So in our normal operations, we had to walk there. So Brigadier Khanna would walk at speeds which would put much younger men to shame. And he did it rightly, deliberately, A, to show that he was fit, and B, he expected better physical standards, because you see the CO, even if he's a young man of 36, is known as the old man. In the army, the CO is known as the old man.
Yep.
So the other people are expected to be fitter.
Yep.
In fact, here, let me quote to you, I won't name him. There is an officer, Kiki sir, you'll remember BBD. So this gentleman had joined the battalion from outside, and he says, "Kya yaar, ye to commando battalion bana rakhi hai tumne?" So I said, "Sir, I am leading the commando platoon, the mortar platoon, and also I do extra." Kehta, "Nahi, even the normal PT and this and that." So that is his background. And a very correct thought he has given why he took it on as a battalion. Whether it is team building, whether it is preparation for operations, whether it is high altitude operations, which includes elements of mountain warfare. And I have myself given you now the higher level motive for this, conceiving this plan to address GoriChen, which if you Google GoriChen, it will be very clear. Next question, please.
So shifting our theater from Arunachal, let's move towards Kashmir.
Okay, halt. Let me give you a human interest story here.
Okay.
So in the preparation, since I was very fond of mountaineering and trekking, and I and my friend had gone in 1980-81 trekking in Nepal, and we had gone to Macha Puchre and all. Those of you who trekked in Nepal would know that you go in from Pokhara, Birathanti, Macha Puchre. Macha Puchre means fish tail. Machi Puch, Macha Puchre. So, and you watch sunrise and you race up. So there was an Australian guy who thought he was very fit. And we said, "Oh, it's 40 minutes. We'll make it." People had started 2 hours earlier. So we started running and gone. There, when we were going, we were even carrying our tents on our back, me and my buddy, another officer. What I'm trying to tell you regarding GoriChen is, I had gone into details which then Brigadier Khanna initially suppressed a laugh. When I went on, I was driven because there were no vehicles available. So as a young captain, I was given a motorcycle with a driver, and I was to sit behind him. We call it the DR, dispatch rider. Sitting behind a motorcycle, 40 kilometers, you go to town, because I wanted matches which had wax on top. Because in high altitude with the rain and all, the matches will get soggy.
Okay.
And the nearest town was Tejpur, and they were not there. So I said, right, Tejpur. So I got the matches and I got candles. And I must have dipped about 1,000 matches in molten wax so that the match becomes moisture proof.
Wow, interesting, very interesting.
Today we have what is called fusee matches, etc. in the army, which are wind and moisture proof. So there are many small things like this which contribute to the success or failure, either directly or by, if you are doing this much of detail, the other guy will also do something. For example, how would you tie a bandage on I fall down from the mountain and I break this bone. How will you tie me over here? Right from school, I was in NCC and also I was interested. So this knowledge actually helped me a lot. Not only in Siachen, it has helped me in JNK where I've been 14 years. I have actually tied in Siachen. You read it in the book, how I did that operation on Ram Hair. So that's later. So this waxing of matches, I am only looking at what will be included in your final edition. So these are those small things, and the more I think of them, I will email them or share them with you in some forum.
Yeah.
And similarly, I'll request Brigadier Khanna sir as well, because these human interest things are what are going to click with your civilian audience. Please continue.
So yeah, thank you for that. Now moving on to Kashmir, and let's say the period of 83 moving into 84, the preparation. So when did, and this is open to both Sanjay sir and Khanna sir, that Meghdut being a very clandestine and a very secret mission. So how did you get to know, and then what steps were taken for you to communicate it to your officers? And please tell us about that 600-kilometer journey which you made to the base camp.
So let's split this into two parts. Brigadier Khanna is the best person to tell you about the initial secrecy part and the training part, and I will add on a few grassroots level details, and then we will come on to the world record breaking march, of which the initial portion from Baltal till Dras was on foot. Brigadier Khanna, sir.
Okay. This is being recorded, you said, no?
Yes.
Will you be sharing the recording with us?
We could share it with you, not a problem.
Yeah, we'll be grateful. Sanjay, you can get the recording and then you can share it with me.
I'll do that.
Okay. So we were in the eastern sector. The battalion was there. In the month, I think in 83, the battalion was ordered to move to Srinagar, a place called Crew in Srinagar. It is about 20 kilometers on one side of Srinagar, Crew. So we were ordered to move there. And there also we had roles in various places, operational roles. So we started training for that, and we were doing our work. And one of the visits, operational reconnaissance, my jonga got overturned while coming back, and I was put in the hospital for about 2 months in a Minerva jacket with my C4, C5 broken or whatever. Not really broken. They call it the subluxation of the spine. So normally after a Minerva jacket and hospitalization for such a long time, you are sent on sick leave and possibly from an operational area posted out to a peace station for at least a couple of years till the time you are absolutely okay, and then you come back.
So just one detail.
This had happened.
Sorry, just one detail. What made the jonga overturn?
Jonga, you see, we were coming back from a place called Uri towards Srinagar, and the driver was driving. I was sitting next to him, and to save another vehicle, the driver took it to one side, and not judging how much he has gone, and the roads are very narrow there, so it left the road and overturned. And the officer with me, Captain Samuel, that time, he had a lot of injuries on the face, etc. And I was looking okay with a stiff neck. So I was taking care of him, taking care of that. I couldn't move my neck. I said, small thing. So, we all landed up in the hospital finally. And Samuel was okay in about 3, 4, 5 days. I continued to stay there because of this big problem. They had put a traction for a couple of weeks and then put a Minerva jacket, which is a full jacket from here. Only a place left for the, spoon to be put in. And I don't think it is there these days. I have not seen anybody in that, but maybe still there. Things may have become better. So this was the condition. And one day, while I was still convalescing at home, the brigade commander calls me and he says the GOC would like to see you. So I said, no, I mean, okay, fine. But in my condition with the beard grown and that collar on my neck, I said it is not proper. So I missed that meeting. So I didn't go since I was officially on leave. So again, I was told, no, he's coming for a party and he has to meet you. So I met him. That is where I was told that there is a mission for us, and nothing was told about the mission. the only thing I was told that there may be a mission for us, and we have to be ready for that. So I asked him various
Which month?
questions. I got no replies.
Would you remember
This
which month
was
this
in the
was?
month. This was end of '83, beginning of '84. It may have been December, January, around that period. So that is the only thing I was told. So the first thing I did was, when I came back, I said, call everybody from leave. Because normally in a normal situation, 25% of the people are on leave. Because everybody gets 2 months leave. The Jawans get 30 days casual leave. And officers, of course, get only 20 days. And 25% of the battalion is on leave. So I issued orders for everybody to be recalled. And since I did not want to tell them why for an operational necessity, no. Fortunately, that year, the government had taken a decision that leave could be accumulated. Annual leave was not allowed to be accumulated. After 31 December, if you had not taken your leave, you had not started your leave, it was surrendered. So I sent a message to everyone that please come back. There are change of laws, and in your own interest, you should come back and accumulate your leaves rather than spending it. And that was the first action which I took. So everybody started coming back without being told that why they have been called back. All the families, we had a few families. Of course, it was a field area. We had a few families. I packed them up to go back home. They were escorted back to their places. And as far as the training is concerned, I said the best way to train is we have to train for the cold. We have to train in mountain climbing. We have to be physically fit. That is the basic thing. And of course, you have to be accurate in your firing. If these things are there, a soldier is good. So 2 o'clock in the morning, I said we will start, we'll get up at 2 o'clock, take our breakfast with full loads, start climbing the mountains, climb for about 4,000 or 5,000 feet, spend a couple of hours there, have a breakfast and come down. So that
What was the location?
Crew.
What was the location where you were doing this?
Crew.
Crew is the place.
So this
near
is a place
Srinagar.
called KHREW.
Yes.
KHREW. It is about 24 kilometers, I think, to the east of Srinagar. When you go towards Anantnag, you branch off left, and this is near Pampur, the saffron heartland of the world.
Yes.
And Crew has a cement factory which is deleterious for our health because of the cement powder, and it is in a bowl surrounded by high hills. And therefore what Brigadier Khanna is saying, that we were in a position to walk up the hill, gain the altitude, rest there, do some light exercise there, spend the day there and get back. Please continue, sir.
And just one more, sir. So, do you remember the details of what your senior had told you about the mission? I mean, how much had they revealed? Like, what is the mission going to be, or what you meant to be doing? Or they just said prepare for a mission? Or did they say prepare for a high altitude?
No mission at all. No, we are just training ourselves for normal operations.
No, so when
we are just training ourselves for normal operations.
No, Kiki sir, listen to his question again.
When your commander told you to cancel leave to prepare for a mission, at that point, what were the details given to you? How much was revealed to you?
There was no details except for what I have told you. That be prepared for an operational deployment, and that's all, And as a CEO, I have to understand how much do I have to prepare myself for an operational deployment? If the corps commander, which is 3 steps higher than me, tells me that be prepared for an operational deployment, I have to make sure my battalion is complete, physically fit, and it has the weapons and equipment, and we are ready to take on any job anywhere in the country, anywhere on the borders. And since we were...
no detail like it will be high altitude or...
Okay, let me
no,
answer
no.
this. Let me answer this for
That
you this
stage,
way.
no.
Please understand, why is a corps commander getting into the picture wherein the hierarchy otherwise should be Brigadier Khanna was the battalion commander of 19 Kumaon. We were serving under a brigade. The number of the brigade is irrelevant. So there's a brigade commander. Every brigade normally has a division above it. So there is a major general rank, general officer commanding the division. And after 3 divisions on top, there is a corps commander, who's a lieutenant general. Now, because as I told you in the early part, which I don't know if it has been recorded or not, we were part of a corps reserve brigade, meaning thereby that 15 Corps which looks after Kashmir. Remember that time there was no 14 Corps looking after Ladakh. That has been created around 2000, 2001. So they were looking after everything north of the Jawahar Tunnel, Kazikund Jawahar Tunnel area. After Patni Top and Ramban, you have the Jawahar Tunnel, those of you driven through. So everything north of Jawahar Tunnel was part of 15 Corps. 15 Corps, like you do when you go somewhere, you keep some petrol in reserve, some money in reserve, some food in reserve, etc. And if you have little children, you keep a few toffees, bubble gums, reading material, what have you, in reserve. So the Corps commander has 2 brigades in reserve to employ, deploy, utilize whenever the tactical situation requires it. So he has forces deployed and he has a small force in reserve. That small force for the corps commander was 2 brigades, which I said was 6 battalions. The point to note here is that he could have chosen from these 2 corps reserve brigades, 6 battalions, any battalion.
Right.
And 19 Kumaon still was a young battalion. Yes, we had done phenomenally well in the counterinsurgency operations in the Northeast. We had GoriChen under our belt, and we had a very good spoken reputation in large measure due to the teamwork nurtured, cultivated, and brainstormed by Brigadier Khanna. So that is one part. Now the second part, what were the orders given to you? Now we are talking of January 1984. I'll tell you the broader picture. What had happened was our DAs abroad had reported that DAs is defense attaches. So every embassy has a military guy there as an attaché with the ambassador, and he looks after the military interests, advises the ambassador, and reports back to the military headquarters in India. Depending on the priority or weight of involvement there, it could be an army or a navy or an air force. And for important countries, we have people from all 3 services there, like Russia, Britain, America. We have an army officer, naval officer, and an air force officer. So our DAs had reported that Pakistan was buying up a lot of alpine equipment. Also, Pakistan had given mountaineering rights to foreign expeditions into Siachen. And remember, this is the days there was no internet. So we didn't know all this. I mean, it's difficult for you to imagine the information void in which our generation has lived. So the corps commander says, be prepared, is now, as Brigadier Khanna says, for the commanding officer to extrapolate. For example, like if Kabir says, you meet me in the evening regarding tomorrow's meeting, then Tanmay will have to work out tomorrow's meeting can entail A, B, C, D, E. Let me do my spade work on all. And then whatever Kabir asks, I will answer. This is important. If he doesn't ask, I will supplement. So same thing Brigadier Khanna is saying. He got orders, be prepared for an operational mission. the corps commander wouldn't have told him you withdraw officers. Kiki sir, correct me if I'm wrong, that would have been his decision.
You see, in fact, with the corps commander, it was at a party and he had taken me to one side, and that is where he was telling me, because he didn't want to call me in his office because it will raise eyebrows with everyone why he has been called to the office. So it was I was asked to meet him in the party, and there he took me to one side and he was just having a chat with me about GoriChen and other things. He had already known about GoriChen and our reputation had already been with him. And he just told me that you will have to, and I told him, sir, I've just been in the hospital. There may be somebody else coming to take over the battalion, because normally you don't keep officers like this commanding in a field area. So, but he said, no, if the battalion I have to deploy, it will be under you only. I said, fine. It was a hell of a confidence in me, and I straight away, couldn't say anything. So based on this information, and my training was only, since we are in the mountains, let's do some mountain training, some acclimatization and physical fitness, and of course, what you call use of weapons. You should be good in the use of your weapons. And I took the battalion for about 10 days to Gulmarg also, where we were doing the same training. In fact, the battalion went by companies, I think, by companies to Gulmarg to do training for about a week or so and come back from crew. So this is what the instructions were. And I withdrew all people from temporary duty, etc., etc. So we got all the stores. The depots were instructed, whatever the deficiencies should be made up with our normal authorizations. Normal authorizations means winter clothing, etc., etc., not high altitude alpine clothing. No, there's nothing of that sort. And then, so this is as far as the preparation and the training is concerned, which we started off.
I have two questions. One, just a quick doubt. At the time, the corps commander was that Lieutenant General Hoon?
Hoon.
Okay.
Lieutenant General Hoon was the corps commander. Is he alive or is he no more?
No, he passed away Jan this year.
He's no more.
He passed away in Jan this
year.
Okay. Okay, so he was a corps commander.
Okay.
And very fine person, very bold person. And so this is what we were preparing ourselves. Then we had a war. Yes.
So my question is your dilemma when you are being given certain instructions, but how much of that can you pass along to the people who have suddenly been called back and you've been, giving them reasons like save your leave or whatever, which doesn't sound very convincing. How much of this information can you pass along to the next person? And you're waking them up at 2 in the morning and taking them up 4,000 meters. Isn't that something that, wasn't there a murmur within your people saying something is up and what is going on? Weren't there questions?
Very, very good. Very right. Actually, the word was going around कि CO साहब का दवा खराब हो गया है, कोई problem है. But when they saw me with them, whatever they were doing, since I am doing the same thing, nobody takes it as a punishment. Then they took it, yes, if the CEO is doing it and he has told us to do, he must be right. He's absolutely right. And they have confidence in you if you do it with them. If you're a part of the same group. And as far as, in fact, the Subda Major came and told me, कि साहब कोई problem तो नहीं आपको? मैंने कहा नहीं. Then he spoke to my wife कि साहब को क्या हो गया? she said, मुझे भी मालूम नहीं क्या हो गया. ये इनका तरीका है, ये ऐसे करते हैं, ठीक है, मैं क्या बता सकती हूँ उनको. So that was the situation, and we had parties in the mess, and we had get-togethers. We played, we had everything being done in the normal way. So that was a part of the routine. I changed the routine, and people, CO in the battalion is treated, with with so much of respect that you can't imagine.
Sir, I have a question. You had mentioned that the government had just changed that policy that you could now accumulate your leave. How did that go about? Because that must have been an interesting thing that the army would have been talking about at that time, that now you're allowed to accumulate. How did that come about?
You see, that order did come. That order did come. In 83 it came. 83 it came. And, generally when the orders come, by the time they get promulgated and all that, it takes time. And so I made that as an excuse to call them. When the letters went to them, this is the change in policy, and I recommend that you come back. And so everybody came back. Everybody came back, and we had full strength back in the battalion. So to that extent, we were ready for anything what could have happened. Then it was in the month later, in February sometime. Yeah, in February. He had told me that till the end of April, you are not likely to move out, and you should be ready. And that is the time I started thinking and getting some more information. And at the end of February, we had a war game in the Corps headquarters. Again, we were all sworn to secrecy. And that is the time I saw a lot of red tabs from Air Force and all over the army, including the army commander, to be present there. And this plan was discussed. So once this plan was discussed, I was taken by the sector commander to his room, where he was staying. He had also come over from Siachen area, Partapur. He was the sector commander in Partapur. He came over. Have you interviewed other people also, or we are the first ones? You must have interviewed a lot of people already.
No, there have been other officials who've been interviewed, yes.
They are aware of the Channa case. They've spoken to Kulkarni. So they are aware of the slight differences in opinion. And I have stressed upon it that their focus would be to create a commercial success of a thing rather than these differences. So it's okay on that issue to be mentioning them, but not laboring on them.
Sir, just one, before you proceed, just one thing, because you said war games had started. Now, war games is something that we're not very familiar with. Could you just describe what does it mean? Is a war game done on a model in a room, or is a war game enacted actually on physical field?
Actually, I'll change the name and call it a sand model discussion was conducted. Sand model discussion. On a sand model where you have an operational area, and hypothetically, they give you a situation and you are asked to make plans, and then there is a discussion on that. So one team is fighting against the other.
If I was to just imagine it visually, it would be in an office or a mess or some large room. There would be a sand model or a sort of a miniature model of the region. So it will be very clear to you what the region is. You would see it as the Saltoro region.
Oh, yes.
That would be there. And there would be positions marked out on that model. And all the officers of every battalion that's going to be involved would be there along with their seniors. How many?
No,
it was only a few people who attended that.
Okay, Kabir.
Brigadier Channa, the sector commander was from that area. The GOC had not come.
Okay.
And I was one of the few lieutenant, I was the only lieutenant colonel, I think, attended that. And other senior officers, including the Air Force commander in Udhampur, the army commander from Udhampur, he had come down, and Corps commander and a few of his staff were there.
Okay, Kabir, let me address your question like this.
Yes, yes.
In a operational discussion of this nature, we have to balance out the need for participation to be wide versus the need for dissemination of operational information on a need to know basis only.
Okay.
Keeping this two contradictory ends of the spectrum, the norm is that you get in the head of department in civilian terms of each stakeholder. Normally speaking, in an operation or in a thing of this sort, as Brigadier Khanna said, no commanding officer would be called. The only commanding officer would be called would be the para commando guy from the special forces, because his vision would be as a force multiplier to the army commander's vision, the lieutenant general sitting in Udhampur.
Okay.
However, the very fact that this commanding officer was called is an indicator to the others that he is the HOD of a stakeholder. Number one. Number two, a whole lot of things are discussed in these discussions. And then there is a word called contingency planning, which in management terms I teach as scenario building. In your office also, whether you do it or not, in the pre-COVID days, by law, you are supposed to carry out a periodic firefighting drill. So that in your multi-story building, if there is a fire, all the fire exits are free from obstruction. The fire hoses and the water pressure is okay. So there is a scenario of a fire and you practice firefighting drills. Similarly, for the army, we discuss what if this happens, what will we do? Now, are we in a position to do it? What are the speed breakers? What capability needs to be refined, augmented, all that. The important takeaway from this is that Brigadier Khanna was called for this discussion, implying that as a lieutenant colonel, where only the top HODs of each stakeholder are called, it would be appropriate in normal terms to call the brigade which was going into operations, and the brigade commander would later, on a need to know basis, a limited filtered version would be given to the CO. And at that stage, all that you need to tell your people is all equipment deficiencies, push staff channels, your logistic channels to make up operational deficiencies of clothing, food, ammunition, all vehicles to be got on road properly, technical equipment to be inspected, all that. Please continue.
But you're saying the COs would not be present over there. So in this case, why was Brigadier Khanna there? Why was he allowed to come there?
Because as I told you that, see, a core reserve brigade may or may not be used as a brigade size force. Okay. And the corps commander was already clear that he would be using it as a battalion. Okay. So whether or not the brigade commander is there is a peripheral matter. The man wholly and solely responsible, and remember, we had no GOC, we had no division commander because we were corps reserve.
Yeah.
And therefore, circumstantially, on this issue, the battalion commander had nobody between him and the corps commander except the brigade commander, who would not be part of this operation. Yes. And therefore, the need to call the battalion commander. Kiki sir, is that a fair description?
Yeah, absolutely right. Even my brigade commander, the local brigade commander in crew, was also not called. He was not at that meeting. The sector commander from Siachen had come down. He was a part of it. So he's the one, after the conference, he took me to his room laid out a map, which, head of tails of it, I couldn't understand it there. Put a blanket on both our heads to make it, and with the torch, he was trying to tell me, this is what may happen. So we had a discussion on that, and war game, of course, I was mostly silent. The only question I had that if we don't go and occupy the ridge line, what can Pakistanis do? Can they come in? Their helicopters couldn't even reach that height. So they, even if they come in, they could be supplied on this side. So that was my way of looking at it. But anyway, I was told at that time, the battalion has about 30, 40 odd tons of load which have to be carried. Normally it is carried in 1 tons, 3 tons or mules, depending upon where you are operating. They are called the A echelon loads and the B echelon loads. I was told,
just a minute, sir.
I will get
just a minute, sir. Suppose you were to transfer yourself from wherever you are located today to, say, Washington. You will fly in with 2 suitcases. Some luggage would be coming in by air cargo, and your entire household would come in by ship because it's cheaper to transport it by ship. So this is what that A echelon and B echelon, what Brigadier Khanna is talking. We prioritize our luggage. What I need on me at all times is my weapon, my ammunition, and my 24 hours of food. What can somebody else has to arrange for me is my next 24 hours of food. Then somebody has to arrange my tentage, my vehicles. So it's the same thing as in civil. This is just terminology. But he's coming to an important point on this business of 30 to 40 tons of stuff. Please continue, sir.
Which has to be carried either by vehicles or by mules or whatever type of operation you're fighting on. So I was told that I am going to get an airlift of 9 tons. 9 tons of airlift. So I had to prioritize the load which has to be carried by air. And of course, all your personal weapons and ammunition along with that, and all your personal kit for the journey had to be carried by us. So it was in the end of February or so that, I started getting the idea what is happening. And of course, there was no dates, and the Corps Commander had told me, by the end of April, there may be a requirement. Not that I'll be required, there may be a requirement, so be ready. So this was as far as the preparation is concerned. About a week before, that is 18th we started, about 12th or 13th, I got a message that you have to leave immediately. So I said, immediately, how immediately? He said, as early as possible. And I said, okay, you tell me when to go and we'll be ready. So we decided on the date of 18th of March. So far, nobody in the battalion knew till that time, except that we were preparing with the loads. And that too as a exercise, like we keep doing it, make-believe exercises in the army. It was a preparation, it was one of the preparations to prepare loads for going by air, 9 tons only. So each company got, 1 ton or whatever it is, and the loads were distributed and people started packing it up. And of course, as I said, the rest of us should be prepared to march with all the loads on our backs. So this was what the scenario was. The battalion, nobody knew in the battalion even till that day. There was Holi.
So just sorry, I just want to go back to the war game scenario, because that's the one part of military operations which is not very clear in our mind as to how it plays out. So correct me if I'm wrong. So is that the first day that you realize that you will actually be scaling Siachen?
Even then, I didn't know how will I be employed there. It was a general discussion.
But you knew there's a mission around Siachen, and there's going to be an offensive on Siachen, or you realize that day that what we've been briefed about is ultimately centered around Siachen.
Not really Siachen, somewhere in Ladakh. I would say somewhere in Ladakh.
So Siachen had still not been mentioned.
No. Siachen is not. Although the discussion was on Siachen and other places, but every place had its own troops. So I don't know whether where I'll be stationed. And
what I mean to say is, like, in that conversation, the terms Villa Pondla, Siala were not mentioned.
Oh, no, they were all discussed. After all, it was a map of, it was a full map of not only Siachen, but to the left of it, right up to POK border. NJ 9844 or whatever.
9842.
To Turtuk.
NJ 9842. So the person explaining it would, in the war game, say, okay, if Unit X were to climb up Bila Fondla, what would happen as a reaction from Pakistan, and what then we would do? Would it play out like that? Like, you're basically doing permutation combinations of things that can happen and things that can go wrong? Or is it now just a briefing saying we'll go up here and B will go here and C will go here?
So the basic discussion in that was that this is the Saltano range. Pakistan is claiming the line joining NJ42 to
9842. 9842.
9842 to Karakoram Pass. And our line was along the Saltano Ridge line. So it was a triangle sort of a thing. In this area, in the gap was the Siachen Glacier. So the discussion was that what can Pakistan do to this place? What we can do to this place? To defend that place, basically it was a defense from our side. Our claim was on the Saltano Ridge. So what we should do on that, and what can Pakistan do to take their claim? So it was a general discussion without any task for my battalion.
So again, at this stage, remember that every geography has troops allotted to it. Every area has its own small reserves, and the corps level is the highest level at which these wars, not battles, wars are fought. These wars are not fought at levels above that. The war is fought at the corps level. And therefore, this battalion, which was earmarked by the corps commander, our battalion, was his ace up the sleeve. And therefore, as Brigadier Khanna is trying to explain, that you could go in. The trick of war is to apply force at a point of decision, not randomly apply it everywhere. So this is the corps commander's kitty, kept, held back, and applied at a decisive point. And therefore, what your question is very right. When do we come to know that it is Siachen for us? It's a very valid question. His answer is equally valid, that being corps reserve, this was a general area where we would be tasked. And it is fair. Why? Because the run-up, the preparation, the operational readiness required, whether you go on to place A or place B, whether you go into Siachen or you go into any other area in that altitude, in that general area, the run-up is the same. The second point I want to bring out here, when he spoke about these helicopters and Pakistani helicopters not being able to reach, please understand that the Indian Army at that time had 2 helicopters functioning, which could 3, if I may say. One is the Mi-17, which with your research you would know is the bigger one. Now, of course, we have Mi-35s as well. The smaller ones, there are two, the Chetak and the Cheetah. The Chetak is the one with the closed tail, and the Cheetah is the one which is more like a grasshopper. Now, Pakistan has similar alouettes. These Chetak, Cheetah are Indian names. They are basically alouettes. Their ceiling height in some cases is just about the height of where you want to land. So these helicopters in a global first were used by the Indian and the Paki army. And the Pakis also had the Pumas, by the way, because I was asked to shoot down a Puma, which I will come to in your later discussion. So this helicopters functioning at the limit of their operational altitude is a fact which is relevant to you.
So I just
now the second point I want to bring out here in this run-up, what Brigadier Khanna explained about the discussion, I'm sure the other people would have told you, and it is there in Brigadier General Chibber's book also, it is there in Nitin Kokhle's, one of his discussions, because I have also been there with him once. Please understand that the Siachen Glacier is a